Welcome back to Personal History. I'm your host, Matt Staley. In this episode, we will once again be hearing a story from my maternal grandfather, Ben Ramsier, but unlike the previous two, this is not about Harold, but instead a story about himself and his brother growing up in rural West Virginia, and about getting your hopes up and then having them dashed and other people not quite understanding why. Hope you enjoy. Thank you.
How about there's a pretty spot in Ireland that'll always claim for my land, where the fairies and the blarneys will never, never die. It's the land of these shillelagh, my heart goes back there daily to the girl I left behind me when we kissed and said goodbye. Now I know the word, but the tune. Got off of that. Takes a lot of wind for that one.
Mm-hmm. Well, Matthew, here's another story I'd like to tell you. It was one of the greatest disappointments in my entire life that I can remember. I had many, but this was one of my first and greatest. I was 18 months older than my brother John, that would be your great-uncle, that was killed long before you was born. But due to me being a rather sickly child, having asthma and bronchial pneumonia, John soon caught up with me in size and weight, and so we grew up, and we even entered school together in the same grade. And it was not uncommon for us to be taken for twins, and we were very close. We played together, we slept together, we fought together as all brothers do. At times, most of all, we lived in a world of fantasy. We dreamed of the day that we could have our own gun. And the reason for this is our dad, your great-grandfather, Joe Ramsier, he loved hunting. And, of course, we would admire his gun, and that was what we dreamed of, when we could have our own gun and go into the forest like our dad. And I remember how we'd sit on the front steps when he'd leave to go squirrel hunting of an evening, and we'd watch him as far as we could as he would shoulder up his Model 97 Winchester 12-gauge and take off into the forest. And we would watch him until he was clear out of sight. And this was the reason that the pages in the Sears and Roebuck catalog, Matthew, were completely beyond reading long before the rest of the catalog wore out, because on that particular page was the Daisy lever-action carbine BB guns. And this was a thing that we would look at and dream of. And this was our dream, even though back in those old days, before the Depression, it only cost $1.49. It was still a lot of money, and it was far beyond our hopes. These were the days when only the rich kids had bicycles, roller skates, and lever-action carbine-style BB guns. Down the road from us, a short distance, there lived a family that had two boys, and they was quite well off because they had the Daisy carbine air rifles and roller skates and this type of things. And I remember how we'd sit on our front steps and we'd admire these kids as they'd walk by with their father, and shooting at tin cans and bottles along the way, and occasionally a sparrow with their carbine lever-action carbine BB guns. And then finally, what we hoped was our day arrived. You see, each day we walked to the post office, was about 1.5 miles away, and we'd pick up the mail. And this was a special day for us because when we got our regular letters in the mail, I remember so well the postmaster called us and said, "Just a minute, there's a parcel here." So through the window, he pushed a parcel that was probably 30 inches long and 1.5 inches wide by probably 5 inches, was just exactly the perfect size that could contain a lever action carbine BB gun. But we were so sure that this was what it was, that Mom knew how we admired it, we just thought that she would probably had surprised us and didn't tell us. And so we just so very enthusiastically grabbed it and put it on her underarm, and away we went toward home. And we'd take turns on the way home carrying it. And I remember how we would stop and lay it up on the old rail fence and sight it at birds, at different things, because we were sure that it was a Daisy lever action carbine BB gun. And so we would rattle it, and we would shake it, and we'd lift it, we'd stand it on end in every way. But there was one thing that we didn't do. We never opened any mail, because that was one rule that Mom and Dad had that would certainly get us in serious trouble. Well, finally, we arrived home, and Mom didn't have to call us. We was right in. We put it in her hands. Instead of going out to play like we normally would, we waited. Well, she took it on her lap, and she looked at it, and she says that you're going to like this. This is really going to be a surprise. Well, that was the thing that made us 100% sure that this had to be our dream. We thought she would never get the end of that parcel opened, and till we could see our BB gun. But finally, when she opened it, and you would never believe what she pulled out of it was a long black umbrella. Now, Matthew, immediately she could tell that there was two little boys that was terribly disappointed, but she couldn't understand why. So she began to try to cheer us up and how we would like it, how handy it would be. And she said that on her way to school on rainy mornings, we could carry it to school and not get wet. And Matthew, this was the thing that really disappointed us, because we just couldn't picture ourselves going to school, carrying this umbrella, and having the other kids all laugh at us. Because, Matthew, when I was in the 3rd grade, nobody, just nobody, carried an umbrella.